Welcome to the Central Alabama High School Sports Show podcast, brought to you by Andrew Sports Medicine, Land of Frost, Hamburger Heaven, Huffman Electric, and State Farm.
Hello again, everybody. I'm your host, Snapper Lancaster, welcoming you to this week's edition of the podcast of the Central Alabama High School Sports Show. We've got an outstanding show lined up for you tonight. One of our guests is going to be our good friend Josh Bean of AL.com, where he covers high school sports and does a great job of it. And the other is the head football coach of the Fultondale Wildcats, and we're talking about Don Dover and some of his players. So hopefully, great evening ahead of us. We look forward to it. Take a quick break, and we'll be right back.
The community features a world-class resort and spa, the amazing Robert Trent Jones Trail Golf Course, miles of historic trails, and the whole family loves the pool at Ross Park. Oh, are we gonna have to watch your vacation slides all night?
This was supposed to be a party.
Well, this isn't my vacation. I live here.
Ooh.
Take your taste to a different place. It's the taste of hamburger heaven. A taste of heaven is always best. Now you know that you're blessed. Give your taste a whole new spin. Bring your friends and come on in. Take your taste to a different place. It's the taste of hamburger heaven.
Land of Frost Premium is America's best-selling 1-pound deli pouch, now available in 12 delicious flavors, including new flavors of mesquite turkey and cotto salami. High school athletes across the country ask for Land of Frost by name. These great items are available at your local grocer, including Piggly Wiggly, Food Giant, Western supermarkets, and many more. Land of Frost also makes other varieties of lunch meats, including deli shaved bistro and sub sandwich kits. Land of Frost is a proud sponsor of youth sports as well.
At Andrew Sports Medicine, we partner with our patients, trying to help them overcome the obstacles that keep them from achieving their goals.
This practice aggressively pursues victory over injury, over pain, over limitation, over anything that's going to keep you from being the best you can be.
It starts with our non-surgical physicians who are trained in sports medicine, orthopedic injuries. We have specialists in sports medicine, shoulders, elbows, and knees. We have hip specialists that do only hip surgery, including arthroscopy, minimally invasive resurfacing, and total hip replacement if needed. We have joint replacement surgeons. We have spine surgeons. We have surgeons that specialize in foot and ankle surgery and in hand surgery. So just about all the specialties of orthopedics are covered at Andrew Sports Medicine.
What makes the great surgeons great is their volume of experience at making decisions, whether that's intraoperative decisions, post-operative decisions, pre-operative decisions, the decision to operate on somebody or not operate on them. And so our volume here breeds good decision making. That gives us an edge in terms of making decisions for our patients, which ultimately is a lot of times the difference between success and failure. The teams, the players, the parents have confidence in us because they know we're going to communicate with them. We're going to create a plan unique to that athlete or that person, and we're going to get them back to their thing and as quickly and as safely as we can.
At Andrew Sports Medicine, our mission is to partner with our patients and to help them succeed and achieve victory. Whether you're a weekend warrior, a grandparent with a shoulder problem, or a professional athlete, you get the same care, the same high-level technology, the same aggressiveness that we would in a professional athlete, and we treat everyone the same way. None of us like to lose. We're all very competitive, and we're not going to lose against their illness or their injury.
Welcome back. As you can tell, I'm joined by my first guest this evening, and of course we're talking about Josh Bean, the AL.com high school beat, in particular sports writer. I know you cover a lot of sports, but Josh, we haven't done this before, and I'm going to let you do this like I let the coaches a lot of times. Tell us a little bit about your background. We're generally just getting right into talking about sports, but you've been a regular guest for us in the last 2 or 3 years, and People might want to know a little bit more about you. How did you get into the business? What has led you here to Birmingham?
Yeah, so my family and I, we lived here in the Birmingham area for a little over 4 years now. I was fortunate to work for the Press Register and AL.com out of our Mobile office for 8 years. Then about 4.5 years ago, my job changed a little bit. I really needed to work out of our Birmingham office, and that's worked really well for me. Before I had my current job, in which I coordinate all of our high school coverage statewide, I was our Mobile beat reporter, and so I grew up in Birmingham. Before I worked for our company, I worked as a sports editor in Florence, Alabama. So I have a pretty good handle on the north part of the state, the central part of the state, the south part of the state, and that's been a great benefit to me in my current job.
Well, I know one thing, you definitely do your job, you do it well, and we definitely appreciate it when you can come on with us.
Well, thanks for having me.
It's a high school athletic program, and you know a lot about these athletes, the coaches, and the schools. And as we get into our discussion, we're going to talk about most of the teams and classes here, because Birmingham's got some teams in almost all the classes, not all, but the one thing that I would like to talk about, and we'll start off with, is the younger schools or the smaller schools, and a couple that come to mind very quickly are Midfield for one, and then Midfield is joined by, and I have to check this because I keep forgetting my guest show on the show tonight, Fultondale. Both of those schools are really playing well this year.
Yeah, and Fultondale is such an interesting school or an interesting team this year. They have two pretty high-level recruits on that team. For a small school, Jason Jones, their junior quarterback, is a really highly thought-of player. Now, he's probably not going to be a quarterback when he gets to college. He's probably going to be a DB or a wide receiver. But he's a game-breaking kind of a player. And then they have Jalen Sims, a middle linebacker. He was our All-Birmingham Defensive Player of the Year last year. He's a very athletic, playmaking linebacker. So you start with that, you take a small school team that's had a lot of success the last few years. Now, they did go through a coaching change in the offseason, but they elevated an assistant. So there weren't a lot of changes there, but you take a very solid program that knows how to win, and then you have these two players who are future college players. They're going to be a very difficult team to deal with once the playoff gets here. It's an experienced team. Both of those guys are, Jason Jones he's a junior, and this is his third year to be their starting quarterback. So he's already played a lot of football. That's going to have to pay dividends for them. I know that they struggled in that opener against Maplesville, but they played very well, in their region schedule so far. We have to think that that's a team that once we get to the playoffs, we'll be able to make some noise. Midfield's an interesting team. New region this year, some new opponents on their schedule, and it's a school that's obviously had a lot of success in basketball recently, but football-wise, they've been a good team. They just don't have a lot of numbers. Generally they have about 30 kids on the roster, so you get a guy hurt here, guy sprains an ankle there, you start having to move pieces around. That can be a real challenge, but Rod Isaac does a really good job with that program. They always have some guys who can make some big plays. And again, their quarterback, Anthony Brown, he is a basketball player, very good basketball player, but he's made a bunch of plays for them at quarterback. He's also a linebacker. So many of theirs, when we have 30 kids, you got a lot of guys playing both ways. So sometimes that can be a real challenge for that midfield team. But I do think that both of those are teams that are going to get in the playoffs. Both are teams that could make some noise once they get there.
And I think they're both 3A.
That's right.
And then the 4A school, the one school that pops out at me is Leeds. But Leeds hasn't had a real strong program.
They really struggled the last couple of years.
Keith Etheridge.
Certainly since Keith Etheridge's departure, they've struggled. We'll see how that shakes out. They've been a little hot and cold. They really struggled in the opener this year. But that's still a team that when you start looking at, hey, who are teams you expect to be in the playoffs, Leeds is still in that conversation.
Well, as we skip up to Class 5A very quickly, Briarwood, you always expect them to be a player. And I know that they're doing really well right now. And also Mortimer Jordan in 5A.
Yeah,
different regions, but both 5A schools.
Look at Briarwood, they were the runner-up last year. St. Paul's moved up to 6A. So they started the season at number 1, and they've done nothing to dissuade anybody from thinking they're that kind of a team. They're still ranked number 1 in 5A. They're making a lot of noise. I think they've given up less than 10 points to this point this season. So defensively, they're playing really well. You mentioned that Mortimer Jordan team. Mortimer Jordan lost to Pleasant Grove in the opener. Pleasant Grove went through a late summer coaching change. Wondered how all that was going to work out. Then Mortimer Jordan lost to Pleasant Grove, and sort of what we've learned since then is Pleasant Grove's probably better than we thought they would be. And then Mortimer Jordan has improved week to week to week to week. Remember, this Mortimer Jordan team just a couple years ago played in the state championship game, so they found some success in 5A. Dusty Good has, seemed to be the right coach at the right time for that program. So I think they're going to be a player. I think that loss in the opener maybe made us think, okay, maybe this is going to be a down year for Mortimer Jordan, but the team is certainly playing against that narrative and moved into the top 10 in 5A this week in the statewide Sports Writers Association poll. That shows that folks around the state understand the tradition that they built the last few years, and then have seen the winning streak that they've gone on. And
as we look into 6A up here in the Birmingham area, of course, two schools that just pop out at you, Clay and Pinson Valley.
Yeah, right now you have to say those are probably two of the 3 or 4 best teams in 6A. Look, Pinson Valley is a defending state champ. Bo Nix is back. He's the future Auburn quarterback. They won it last year. Your quarterback is back. He's a big-time recruit. You expect them to be good. Clay Chalkville's really interesting. Really the only team that's really handled them the last couple of years is Pinson Valley, the defending state champ. They have DJ Dale, the future Alabama player, anchoring their defensive line. Those two teams played a really tough physical game a couple of weeks ago. It's easy to think that maybe they're running into each other in the playoffs again.
And a couple other 6A teams we'll mention right here at the end. Of course, one is Homewood. You expect Homewood to do really well. Here's the one that's really surprising me, and what a fantastic job that Tim Bakakis is doing at Jackson Olin.
Yeah, look, they're 5-0. They've got this star-studded defense with 2 future Power 5 guys out there, maybe a third at defensive end, and they're just stopping people. They've stayed healthy. Vonta Bentley at middle linebacker has been fantastic. He's going to Clemson, or he's committed to Clemson. So that team's played great. Remember, last year they had Connis Miller at defensive line, and they didn't even make the playoffs. So we wondered, this was a team that had a lot of expectations, despite not even making the playoffs last year. And I think they've exceeded those expectations here in the early part of the season.
And so it's going to be interesting to see how they end up, if they can play as well in the second half. They make some unexpected noise when the playoff time gets here.
6A is so deep.
Right.
There's so many good teams. And part of that, of course, is, we only have 32 teams in 7A. So some really large schools are in that top part of 6A. But Jackson Olin's played great so far. Like I said, defensively, they're stopping people. They're explosive on offense. They're not scoring 50 points a game or anything, but they're explosive enough that they can make some big plays. And then, if they score 20 points, they feel really good about their defense.
And so, folks, that gives you a look at the view from the smaller classifications. When we come back, we're going to talk 7A. We're going to talk about the power poll, which is very interesting. I look forward to hearing what Josh has to say about that. We'll take a quick break. We'll be right back. Don't you go away. You can catch our show on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Breaker, Pocket Cast, Radio Public, Stitcher, and YouTube. You can also visit us on our social media outlets, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Be sure to like and subscribe to our platforms. If you have an idea for a show topic or would like to be a sponsor, please email us at castvshow321@gmail.com.
The community features a world-class resort and spa, the amazing Robert Trent Jones Trail Golf Course, miles of historic trails, and the whole family loves the pool at Ross Park. No, are we gonna have to watch your vacation slides all night?
This was supposed to be a party.
Well, this isn't my vacation. I live here.
Ooh.
And this will be your premium right here.
Sorry to interrupt. I just want to say I combined home and auto with State Farm.
Saved $760.
Love this guy.
Okay, does it bother anybody else that the mime is talking? Freaky.
Bundle home and auto, and you could save $760.
That's 760 very good reasons to call Alan Gurdeau in Trussville today.
And folks, we're back. Of course, Snapper Lancaster along with Josh Bean, AL.com sports writer, high school sports in particular. And Josh, in this segment, I guess we always like to talk about and use the term the big boys. Mm-hmm. And we don't mean that disrespectful to anybody. We're talking about the big classification, which is 7A, and how dominant some of the teams are in the Birmingham area this year. Yeah, I guess you could easily say 7A wise, if we don't have, we're right at the top with the best region in the state.
Yeah, I mean, that region, and it got better this year, right? You know, we had the Hoover and Mountain Brook and Oak Mountain and Vestavia. All of those teams are so well coached, and they're very talented every year. And the margin of victory and those teams are so close together talent-wise usually. So but then we took Hewitt-Trussville, who had two, back-to-back 10-0 regular seasons. They came back to the Birmingham region this year. Right. So it got even better. So we have Hewitt-Trussville, we have Hoover, we have Thompson. Those are three, certainly three of probably the, count them on both your hands, certainly three of the top 10 teams in the state, maybe three of the top 5 teams in the state. So when we talk about 7A football and we talk about high school football in general in the Birmingham area, those are definitely the 3 teams we start with now.
Well, I tell you what, and it's beginning to look like you got Hoover and you got Thompson and you got Hewitt that, and I don't like to use this term, and we're not going to throw it around loosely, but shoe-ins to be in the playoffs. Yeah. And I don't know how you see it. I see they played this past week, Vestavia and Mountain Brook, and Mountain Brook come away with a big win. So that they could easily, they're got a leg up, for lack of a better way to put it, for that 4th spot. Now, having said that, we know you still got to go out, and we can talk the talk, but they have to go out and walk the walk.
And Mountain Brook is probably the most surprising of those teams right now. They're still undefeated. They've played extremely well. They're undefeated. And yes, it helps that they haven't had to play Hewitt-Trussville, Hoover, or Thompson yet. But, you can only play the schedule that's in front of you. That region schedule is, it's a blind draw. You don't know exactly how all that's going to work out. So, that's a team that should be playing with a lot of confidence. Hewitt-Trussville, Hoover, and Thompson are all very talented teams. They're teams with a bunch of future college players on them. And Talia Tungavailoa is at Thompson, and he's played about as well as we could expect him to play. Through 5 games, he's already thrown for more than 2,000 yards. He's on track to break the state single-season passing record. He's having a great year. You look at that Hoover team. I'm not sure there's a high school team in the country that played a tougher first 4 games to start the season. So, no, they're not undefeated. Yes, they lost to Hewitt-Trussville. But those first 4 games, remember they beat Pinson. Then they played an out-of-state team, St. John from Washington, D.C., that's essentially considered one of the top 10 teams in the country. Then they came back and beat Thompson. Then they played Hewitt-Trussville and lost. So I said at the beginning of the year to some folks that if Hoover could go 2-2 in the first 4 games, you'd probably consider that a success. I still think they're going to be a player,
And what scares me a little bit, and I wonder if you say the same thing, I'm surprised at the defense, that there seem to be some deficiencies there.
Well, look, in the 2 losses, they gave up more than 300 yards rushing in both games. That's a surprise. I think the Hoover coaches would tell you the same thing. They don't expect to get the ball run on them like that, but they are a very explosive offense. They've got, George Pickens, the wide receiver from Hoover who's committed to Auburn. He is a ridiculously talented, game-breaking kind of a player. So he opens up a lot of things for them. Larry McCammon, their running back.
Right.
Frankly, I think he's a little underappreciated in recruiting circles. I think he's an SEC player. He doesn't have any of those kind of big-time offers yet. I think that it's still a possibility for him. But my point is that they have a talented roster. If there's a staff that's going to get their defensive deficiencies fixed, we expect it to be Hoover.
Right.
We've seen that. And I've said this, I think I said it on your show last year maybe, but one of the things I like about that Hoover program and the way that it's run is that they're not afraid to lose a game.
Right.
Some people, especially when you're really good, you want to go 10-0, and when you don't, when you lose a game, it's as if the sky's falling. And Hoover has proven over the last 10 years with Josh Niblett there that when they lose a game, they find a way to learn from that and to figure out what their deficiencies are and to take the time to fix those. So, yeah, they've got 2 losses already. One of those is in the region. There's a chance that, we might end up in a 3-way tie here for first place. They might not even be at home the first week in the playoffs, which seems almost impossible with Hoover. But look, that team is going to get it fixed. And, I mean, if there's a team that you have confidence is going to figure it out, it's that group.
And the other thing about that, too, is we're seeing that we've got other talent in that classification, that it's not just Hoover anymore. And so that's just better for everybody, because a team that has surprised me, that I think they're better than their record indicates, is Oak Mountain. And they still may sneak in the back door. You never know.
Well, we talked about Mountain Brook not having to play those 3 top-tier teams. Oak Mountain was the opposite. They had to play Thompson, Hewitt-Trussville, Hoover in successive weeks with a freshman at quarterback. So Evan Smith, the young quarterback, has played fantastic. I think he has certainly played in a way that we all expect that he's going to be a college player one day, whether that's in the SEC or at a mid-major, who knows. But he's on a lot of college scouts' radar already just as a freshman. And part of that is the success that he's had against those top-tier teams. I agree with you that their record probably doesn't reflect how good they are. It'll be really interesting. Right now, I think we have to look at the rest of that region and say, okay, who's the 4th playoff team?
Right.
You probably look at it right now and say it'd probably be Oak Mountain or Mountain Brook. That game later in the year will be really big.
Well, and as the last few minutes that we've got here, let's talk a little bit about this power poll, because the thing that interests me is just talking about all the schools, if you're good enough to make the power poll. And we've got half a dozen here in Birmingham area, and of course it's the top 25. I didn't mention the fact that Homewood was at 25, Jackson Olin at 19. Now how that'll end up, we don't know, but they're playing great right now. At 14 was Mountain Brook. And Mountain Brook is one of those teams that may move up a little bit, but they've still got the big 3 in front of them. Briarwood, that's no surprise to you, right?
That's right.
And they're in at 12. And then you get to the top 10. And then you've got, in those top 10, you got 5 Birmingham teams. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Clay Chalkle at 9. And Pinson Valley at 5. Now, do you see those still the 2 power schools in 6A?
Well, I think those 2 teams in Oxford are probably the teams. And, it's interesting because they're all in the same region this year. So, Pinson Valley just defeated Oxford. Oxford and Clay will play later this year. Those are probably the 3 teams. All of them are in the north part of the state. They're all in the same region. Right now, they seem to be 3 of the elite teams. You mentioned that the power poll. It's oural.com, Power 25. We started a few years ago, and it's really interesting to look at it because there are a couple of different ways to look at our poll. One way is to say, okay, are you ranking them as to who you think would win if they played? And then there's also the idea of, okay, who's the best pound for pound team? And so that's why, you see teams like Fife, a small 2A school, which has been in our poll virtually all season. Lynette spent some time there. They won 2A last year. They moved down to 1A this year. So it's an interesting mix of teams, and we do it by all classifications, right? We're just trying to rank the teams regardless of the class. And so, yes, it is dominated by 6A and 7A teams, but, we have teams move up and down and in and out, and sometimes those are smaller schools. I think that's one of the things that makes our poll really interesting.
Well, the last thing we'll say as we bring this conversation to a close, Hewitt, Hoover, and Thompson, how strongly do you feel one of those teams could end up being the state champ?
I definitely think one of those three will get there. It seems like Central Phoenix City, we've said this the last few years, that they're one of the elite teams in the South. They keep getting defeated. They keep getting knocked out of the playoffs by McGill-Tulane. But Central seems like the team to beat right now. They're number one in our Power 25. They're number one in the statewide 7A poll. They played fantastic. They have a quarterback that's committed to LSU. They have a running back that's committed to Arkansas. They've got a lot of talent on that team. Last few years, since Jamie DuBose has been there, he just haven't been able to get over that hump and get in the championship game. So my bet is it'll probably be Central Phoenix City against one of those three Birmingham schools. We'll just have to see how they fight it out in the playoffs.
Absolutely. Well, I tell you what, Josh, it's always interesting to have you on the program. You're a plethora of high school information. That's why I call on you, and that's what this program's all about. And I love talking about the kids from here in the Birmingham-Jefferson County area, and you do a fantastic job. Once again, thanks for being with us.
Thanks for having me.
Folks, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we've got a head football coach coming our way. Don't you go away. We'll be right back.
Take your taste to a different place. It's the taste of hamburger heaven. A taste of heaven is always best. Now you know that you're blessed. Give your taste a whole new spin. Bring your friends and come on in. Take your taste to a different place. It's the taste of hamburger heaven.
The next time you need electrical work, whether it be commercial or residential, you need to call Huffman Electrical Contractors, a company that's been in business for over 35 years. They've served clients not only locally in the Birmingham area and all over the state, but have clients outside the state of Alabama as well. Whether it's a new building or remodeling an older building or home, they can handle the job for you. Once again, that's Huffman Electrical Contractors. The number to call is 205-661-5005. That's 205-661-5005. We're at Huffman Electrical Contractors. A satisfied customer is always their number one objective. And folks, welcome back. As you can tell, we've got another guest here with us tonight. It's the first time we've had this gentleman on. He's the head football coach of the Fultondale Wildcats, and we're talking about Don Dover. Coach, good to see you.
Good to see you too, Sam.
And what we're going to do tonight, because of the situation and how it's unfolded today, we're going to talk in our first segment about for people that may be seeing you for the first time, tell us a little bit about your background and what has led you to be the head football coach there at Fultondale.
Well, it's my 6th year there, and it's my first year as head coach, and I was most of the college career. Okay. I traveled around in the country every 3 years. At college, you move around, stuff like that, and then we moved here. My parents are elderly, and I want to be my children their grandparents and stuff. And so we moved back to Birmingham a while back, and I was coaching at Birmingham Southern. Okay. And then I got out of coaching for a few years. Was going to sell insurance and all that good stuff. Right. And my wife really fell in love with Birmingham, Alabama. And she could tell I wasn't enjoying myself and stuff, and wanted me to get back in coaching, and told me to get a high school job and not move around every 3 years and let our kids have a home.
Well, now having said that, and all that makes a perfect sense when you're talking about your family life. Growing up, when I guess you were an athlete. Did you go to a college on scholarship?
I went to Marion Military Institute.
Oh, did you?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
I played at Berry High School for Coach Finley here in
Really?
Yes, sir.
All right. Oh, okay.
And then I went to Marion Military Institute, and then I walked on to the University of Alabama.
And so, of course, you were an assistant all those years to start with.
Yes, sir.
Talk about what it was like for you going from that adjustment of being an assistant where you have certain duties to where you are the number one guy and you have a lot of duties.
The biggest adjustment is, we all have our duties and all that, like you said, for assistants, and, I let those guys that I have, coach their position and take care of their duties and all that. The biggest part that's been not a distraction or a biggest eye-opener is how many people that I had to talk to and stuff like that, and, outside of the program and stuff like that, in charge of these things, and fundraising and that type of thing.
Well, you know what? That was the next area I was going to talk with you a little bit about it, because I've talked with a lot of coaches through the years, because I've been doing this show for 20 years, and you'll hear a lot of different stories about the backgrounds. But once you get to be the head job, there's, and I don't want this to come out the wrong way, and please feel free to correct me if I'm halfway wrong, but there's a lot of public relations work to do in it. And you've got boosters to deal with, you've got people in the city and high political places sometimes, and you've got your booster groups, and you've got parents and fans. It's a whole different ball game from that aspect, isn't it?
Yes, sir, and there's so much more going on just other than just coaching your football team. And so that's been, managing my time to wisely so I can be part of those type of things and stuff like that.
And so you told me you went to Berry, right?
Yes, sir.
Well, the reason that Fultondale holds such a warm place in my heart is my son went there, graduated, and was the tailback his junior and senior year back in the late 90s. And so Fultondale, I've always enjoyed having the coaches on, keeping up with the school to see what's going on. But yeah, and talk about those duties that you've had to take upon yourself. First of all, I guess you had to come up with your own coaching staff. How did you go about that? Did you have a lot of, not a lot, but did you have some holdover from the other staff, or did you have to start from ground zero?
I had some holdover and all that, and then we had a couple guys that had been volunteering, younger guys that have not had their teacher certificates that got those, and I was able to get those hired. And we had another gentleman that came to us from another part of the county and helped us out. So,
well, it sounds like from talking to you as well is that you had the idea of, or had an idea of what that transition was going to be like a little bit, maybe from talking to some people, or what the hurdles you were going to be facing. And so those challenges, did everything sort of work, or had it sort of worked the way you envisioned it would?
Well, I had been there 5 years as an assistant, so I had a little lay of the land type deal. Knew my the principal and the athletic director and stuff, so we got along fine and good. So it was not difficult change and all that. So I knew a little bit of what was going to be expected and that type of thing. And I knew people in certain positions who I needed to ask for help and who could point me in the right direction for finding out how this needed to be done, and those type of situations.
Now, when you went to college at Marion Institute, right? Athletics there?
First year and a half of my college career, yes, sir.
So what was your sport?
Football.
Was it? Did you ever think about, what was your thought when you left, got out of school? Did you have expectations of maybe being a coach one day, or has that just sort of worked its way into your life?
I wanted to be a part of athletics. I really enjoyed it, playing and stuff. So I didn't, like most people, they don't ever want to give it up. It just kind of happens when you just run out of time. And I just want, the camaraderie of the team and that situation, that I wanted to stay and be a part of it. And I felt coaching was the best way to stay and be a part of it.
Well, as the old saying goes, we live sort of in a different world today than one I grew up in, and probably even the one that you grew up in as well. There's a whole different kind of athlete. And what has, and I guess being assistants really helped you along these lines, what kind of adjustment have you had to make from being that assistant to the head man?
The biggest adjustment is, taking care of the whole team. And I've always been on the offensive side of the ball. And that's, offensive line and offensive coordinator. So I've always worried about the offense. But, looking at the total team picture as far as how does this player fit in offensively, or does he need to be, where I was selfish before, it's like we need him on offense, But now as the head coach, he might be a better fit for us on defense and be more, successful for himself and for our team in situations like that. Where before I need him. We don't, I wasn't worried about the defense. I was worried about what I was concentrating on, which is offense, and seeing that whole picture of where these kids fit in, stuff like that, and where they can help us.
So overall, I guess, would you say that your transition from an assistant coach to the head coach has been about as smooth as it could be? Have there been any surprises or anything that's caught you by surprise?
Not any major or anything like that. Like I said, I'd been there and I had to set expectations and stuff that we wanted to accomplish, and I think that it's gone pretty smoothly.
And it sounds like all the work that you've done with the community and everything has just sort of fallen into place for you. And one of the main reasons, like you said, was it definitely did not hurt that you had been there a while.
Yes, sir. So, knowing the principal, knowing Coach Hughes, our athletic director, and then our Christy Jennings, our booster club president and stuff, and, they were more or less, they were coaching me on how I needed to handle these things and that type. So pointing me in the right direction.
Well, I tell you what, it sounds like that so far it's been a good fit. You've had an outstanding season to this point.
Yes, sir.
And as a matter of fact, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, in the second segment of the show, we're going to be talking about Coach Dover, his football team, what is going on, what isn't, the positive and the negatives, and what it looks like for him with the second half coming up. So we'll take a quick break. We'll be right back.
And this will be your premium right here.
Sorry to interrupt. I just want to say I combined home and auto with State Farm.
Saved $760.
Love this guy.
Okay, does it bother anybody else that the mime is talking? Freaky.
Bundle home and auto, and you could save $760.
That's 760 very good reasons to call Alan Gurdeau in Trussville today.
Land of Frost Premium is America's best-selling 1-pound deli pouch, now available in 12 delicious flavors, including new flavors of mesquite turkey and cotto salami. High school athletes across the country ask for Land of Frost by name. These great items are available at your local grocer, including Piggly Wiggly, Food Giant, Western supermarkets, and many more. Land of Frost also makes other varieties of lunch meats, including deli shaved bistro and sub sandwich kits. Land of Frost is a proud sponsor of youth sports as well. And Coach, welcome back again. We're visiting with Coach Don Dover, the head football coach of the Fultondale Wildcats. And in the first segment of the show, we found out how he ended up getting there, the background and the things that took place in his life for him to end up as the head coach. In this segment, Coach, we're probably going to do the easy part. We're going to let you talk about your football team. And the way we start this off, first of all, you're off to a great start. Mm-hmm. And the team is doing well. What are you in the region already?
We're 3-0 in the region.
3 wins. So I don't mean this in a negative way. And if I say something that in a way that you say, Snapper, don't go there. With 3 wins, you're almost guaranteed that you're going to have a spot with 3 wins this early.
Yes,
so that's got to take a little pressure off.
Yes,
coaches, as we get into talking about your team, first of all, we'll talk about the 3 phases. Tell us about your offense, your defense, and your special teams.
Well, offensively, we're shotgun spread, what we call spread and all that, but we power run game is what we're trying to do. And we have a special quarterback in Jason Jones, junior. He was All-State last year as a sophomore, special young man, but we have a lot of other tools around him. And Willie Smith, a receiver, Nate Donovan, another wide receiver, does a really good job for us. Our offensive line has not been doing as good a job as we need them to do right now, but they're coming together. And as the season progresses, I expect them to do a better job. And then with our running backs, we do it by committee. We have several: Antonio Purdom, Aaron Boyd, Altante Reese, Cameron Silman, and stuff that do a really good job for us running the football. And like I said, with power run game, we try to run downhill.
Well, I know one of the probably challenges of moving or being in the classification you are, and the way that the schools have moved around a little bit.
Yes.
You are probably becoming a traveling team, and I don't mean that in an ugly sense. I just mean in a factual sense that a lot of the teams you play are probably a pretty good distance away.
Yes,
How does that change preparation? How does it change the mindset of not only you and your coaching staff, but the mindset of your players, knowing that you're doing a lot of traveling?
It's funny that you mentioned that. It's gotten better the last couple of years. A couple of years ago when I was assistant, we traveled down past Auburn and stuff before for a region game, a couple hours each way. And it's far for a region game for a high school player to travel that far and preparation for that. But it's not as bad. We play mostly in Blount and Coleman County schools now, where they've put us to this year. But it's a mental thing and maturity thing with our kids that you got to try to explain to them the best that we can. It's a business. We've got a job to do, and we're not going for sightseeing and things like that. We of course want them to enjoy themselves, but to the same point too that the winning's where the fun is. It's not going to be a very fun trip coming back if we're not winning.
Well, and I talk with coaches about this, and I have through the years. Winning is very important. As the old saying goes, that's why we play the games.
Yes,
but let me ask you how you feel about this point. And like I said, I've talked with other coaches about it. Sometimes you can learn a lot of valuable lessons by losing. As the old saying goes, it's easy to be a winner, but sometimes you find out who you really are with a tough loss. And a lot of times the best lessons you learn from losing. What's it old say? It's easy to be a winner. I guess you find out what you're made of when you have to pick yourself up after a loss. How do you feel about that? How do you characterize that and address your team with that issue?
Well, as coaches and all that, we never want to have the loss and all that. We want to try to fix that before. But we're dealing with young people when you never face adversity like a loss. When everything is going well and all that, you're always riding high. You don't see those cracks in the armor and things like that need to be worked on. You just think, okay, well, we're winning, then we don't have to worry about these things. And unfortunately for all of us, sometimes a loss is just, now you get to do a little self-inventory of, why we're not successful as we want to be, and start working and correcting those things. And good coaches, find that out before. But people like me, sometimes we got to take a loss and all that to figure those things out.
Well, the athletes, in talking about, you were young and it's been a while since you played ball.
Yes, sir.
This, how different for you and maybe your coaching staff, this is a different breed of athlete, it seems like, that we're dealing with these days. And it's like, excuse me, it's like there's more going on to their life. They're busy from sun up to sundown, it seems like. We're used to, you focused on your books, you focused on your practice, and you went home, went to bed, and started the next day. It's not that way anymore. What kind of challenge and how do you and your coaches face that challenge of this modern day athlete?
Well, we just try to be honest with them and tell them where we feel that they are athletically. And, you have so many people that, and you see it in the college now with their new redshirt rules and stuff like that. There's a big article today about a big-time player transferring because he's no longer the starter and stuff. And so kids want to play, want to be on the first team and stuff. And it goes back to again that adversity. How are you going to handle it if you're not getting your way? And are you going to? I'll just go somewhere else, or I'm going to stay here and fight. I'm going to earn that spot. So that's and that's what we want our young men to learn is, when things are not going your way, are you going to dig in and, fight for what you believe in, or are you going to turn tail and run?
Right. Coach, let me ask you this. When you're talking with your athletes, you try to be as positive as you can, but yet then you have to be truthful with them as well. And sometimes the old saying goes, the truth hurts. Is the group of kids you have, and you've been around them a little bit because of that. Do you have a group that you feel like that it's a positive thing, that everybody's sort of on the same page? I talk to kids about this all the time, and it can apply to coaches as well. Chemistry. The chemistry between you and your assistants is often translated to what kind of players you're going to have according to the relationships that you have. Talk about from a coach's standpoint how important that chemistry is for you and your coaching staff and your relationship with your kids.
Well, you just have to be honest with them. Sometimes, like you said, the truth hurts and all that, and that they can't, want to play this position or play this, or want the ball more or want to play this. It's not how it works when you're playing on an 11-man team out there on that field. This is your spot and this is your role and this is how you're doing your position to the best of your ability. It helps this team be successful. You might not get your name in the paper every weekend or on social media and things of that nature, but making this team have success and being a small part of something bigger than yourself.
Well, let me ask you this, and this is just an opinionated question and how you feel about it. Has it surprised you, the success, the fast start your team has gotten off to this year, or did you halfway expect it?
Well, we turned a lot of players from a region championship team last year. We were 11-1 last year, and we returned a lot of aspects of that. So we expected to be successful. And we, like I said, facing adversity, we had Maplesville came to town our first ball game and beat us up pretty good and let us know that we had work to do and we couldn't just show up and because we had Fultondale on our chest that they were going to lay down for us. So that was a good lesson I hope we learned, and we've taken that to heart these last 3 weeks, and that'll continue the rest of the year.
Well, I tell you, I think one thing that has helped your team too is y'all have had some success there at Fultondale the last few years.
Yes, sir.
And we talk about this a lot at the big schools, but in a smaller school, it's the same thing. You want these kids to outdo what the bunch before them did. And if you're all on the same page, and it sounds like your team this year is off to a great start, they learned a lesson a little bit from that first game, I guess.
Yes, sir.
Because it sounds like that they've been playing a lot more solid football the last 2 or 3 weeks.
We've been able to coach them a little bit harder since that first loss, yes, sir.
Well, I tell you what, Coach, it sounds like you've got every reason to be hopeful that this is a playoff team. You're off to a great start, and barring injury or barring a letdown, which that's where you and your coaches, that's where y'all's job comes in. It sounds like this team is used to some success and are willing to pay the price to get it.
Yes, sir.
Well, Coach, let me tell you, it's been a pleasure to have you on the show. I will tell you, and I tell the kids when they're with us here, you want to guarantee a second engagement this same year, get out and win a state championship. We'll come back up here and let y'all celebrate it with us.
Yes, sir. We'll try to do our best we can.
Well, listen, we wish you all the luck in the world. You're off to a good start, and I hope that this is the kind of season that you can make it one of the best they've ever had there. I know that's y'all's challenge and your goal.
Yes, sir.
But
appreciate you.
We've had a great evening, 2 outstanding guests, great football coach here, first year on the job, his team's off and running, and we hope that there's a lot of success and some great success when the playoffs get here a little later in the year. Coach, good to see you. Good luck the rest of the way.
Thank you so much, Snapper. Appreciate you.
Thank you. And folks, we're same time, same place next week. Till then, you know what the Snapper always says, bicycle. You can catch our show on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Breaker, Pocket Cast, Radio Public, Stitcher, and YouTube. You can also visit us on our social media outlets, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Be sure to like and subscribe to our platforms. If you have an idea for a show topic or would like to be a sponsor, please email us at castvshow321@gmail.com.
At Andrew Sports Medicine, we partner with our patients, trying to help them overcome the obstacles that keep them from achieving their goals.
This practice aggressively pursues victory over injury, over pain, over limitation, over anything that's going to keep you from being the best you can be.
It starts with our non-surgical physicians who are trained in sports medicine, orthopedic injuries. We have specialists in sports medicine with shoulders, elbows, and knees. We have hip specialists that do only hip surgery, including arthroscopy, minimally invasive resurfacing, and total hip replacement if needed. We have joint replacement surgeons. We have spine surgeons. We have surgeons that specialize in foot and ankle surgery and in hand surgery. So just about all the specialties of orthopedics are covered at Andrew Sports Medicine.
What makes the great surgeons great is their volume of experience at making decisions, whether that's intraoperative decisions, post-operative decisions, pre-operative decisions, the decision to operate on somebody or not operate on them. And so our volume here breeds good decision making. That gives us an edge in terms of making decisions for our patients, which ultimately is a lot of times the difference between success and failure. The teams, the players, the parents have confidence in us because they know we're going to communicate with them, we're going to create a plan unique to that athlete or that person, and we're going to get them back to their thing and as quickly and as safely as we can.
At Injury Sports Medicine, our mission is to partner with our patients and to help them succeed and achieve victory. Whether you're a weekend warrior, a grandparent with a shoulder problem, or a professional athlete, you get the same care, the same high-level technology, the same aggressiveness that we would in a professional athlete, and we treat everyone the same way. None of us like to lose. We're all very competitive, and we're not going to lose against their illness or their injury.